Do you enjoy being emotionally scarred, develop a deep connection to characters, share all their happiness, anger, and suffering? Or maybe you're just here because you want to kill enemies by slinging stones on their heads and get them devoured by rats. Either way, A Plague Tale Requiem's got you covered on all these bases and many more. What is good, everyone, and welcome back to the Backlog Project, where we play through a gigantic list of games to find out which of them is worth putting onto your backlog. Got a game you'd like to see on the show? Check the description of the video to take part in our weekly poll, where you get to decide the next game I'll review. I really love the first Plague Tale game. It has a heart-rending but beautiful story with some of the most well-written characters in the medium, jaw-dropping vistas, an amazing soundtrack, and gameplay that is at least unique, even if it certainly has its issues. As you can probably guess from that, I've been looking forward to A Plague Tale Requiem quite a bit, so today we're gonna do something I haven't done before on the channel. Review a game right when it launches, off the usual schedule. Or rather, as close to launch as I could manage. The channel is still a bit too small to be getting review copies, so thank you for checking out the video even though it's a bit late. Anyway, I can't wait any longer, so let's see what this highly anticipated sequel has in store for us. Since this game is a direct sequel to the first game, some of what I will talk about might spoil what happens in Innocence and some early stuff in the sequel, so if you still haven't, but want to play that, please use the timestamps in the description of the video to avoid any parts of the review that might ruin your experience. 6 months after the first game, Amicia, Hugo, their mother Beatrice, and apprentice alchemist Lucas settle down in the French Provence to live a quiet life while trying to cure Hugo of the macula, his sickness that connects his mind to the rats. The game opens up with a beautiful shot of southern France, one of many you will see throughout your journey. Amicia, Hugo, and Lucas are playing in the fields, which doubles as tutorials for the game's main gameplay mechanics: stealth and using your slingshot. And just like in the first game, shit goes down south real quick. Amicia and Hugo get caught up in a manhunt on some family's property and need to escape without being caught. Doesn't really work too well though, because Hugo is still the same softie he always was and draws attention to himself by trying to save someone. The siblings are cornered. Amicia gets her first chance to show off some of her brother protection skills and kills one of them before being hit in the head, which results in Hugo calling the rats to devour the enemies before fainting himself. So it's still that sort of game, huh? If it wasn't clear by everything that happened up to this point, Requiem spells it out very clearly early on in the game. The macula is killing Hugo, and Beatrice's basic knowledge of alchemy isn't enough to save him. Thus, they set out to find higher-ranking members of the Order, a cult of alchemists that studies the macula and everything connected to it. Meanwhile, Hugo has recurring dreams of an island where he finds a pond that cures him and tries to convince his family to try and find it. Without spoiling too much, let's just say that the Order as well as the island play a large part in the story, and as was the case in the first game, not everything in A Plague Tale Requiem is either black or white. There are a lot of nuances in the world building and story as well as character writing, so you never know what's going to happen next, but are always given enough information to keep you speculating on where the plot could go. Speaking of characters, Requiem takes its predecessor's strong character writing and turns it up to 11. Amicia, formed by the trials she faced in the first game, has grown into a strong and dependable young woman, but seems to overestimate her own abilities and limits. Combine that with the deep hatred she has developed for everyone who tries to take Hugo away from her, and the emotional trauma of killing people and sickeningly getting used to it, she often finds herself in over her head.
This is my ground now! This is where they die! Oh yes, come then! Show me how you'll do it!
However, underneath that facade is a girl forced to become an adult way too soon that loves her brother above all else and struggles to keep up with her ever-increasing responsibilities. If you thought Amicia's character growth was over after the first game, you thought wrong, because the writers have once again done an amazing job depicting her struggles as not only very realistic, but also relatable. Having realized he, or rather the macula in his blood, is to blame for the appearance of the rats and the countless deaths caused by them and their plague, Hugo isn't exactly mentally stable either. With the rats following them to Provence, he's often overwhelmed not only by feelings of guilt and fear, but also the powers the macula offers him. He could destroy everything that endangers him and his loved ones with just one thought, but will in turn also destroy the world. Learning to use these powers to protect what he holds dear without losing control over them is taking its toll on such a young child, and he can just barely hold on by relying on his sister, who herself is relying on him as the only thing she lives and fights for. This time around, the side characters get a little more of the spotlight, with them not only being more integrated into the story, but the gameplay as well. Besides Lucas and Beatrice, there are also a few new characters with their own reasons to accompany you on your travels, like Arnaud the Rogue Knight and Sophia the Smuggler. Giving these characters more time to shine really paid off. Our protagonists share not only a lot of funny and wholesome, but also emotional moments with the rest of the cast, which adds some dynamic to the otherwise gloomy and serious plot.
I can't wait to get on a boat.
You see that? That is the right attitude.
That is the right attitude.
Charlotte McBurney and Logan Hannon once again do an incredible job lending their voices to Amicia and Hugo, while some of the side characters negatively stand out. It's not that their performances are bad, but rather it sounds like multiple of their takes got put together to form a sentence, so they wouldn't need to do as many and save time and money. I can understand this approach from a business standpoint, but if it's done sloppy and noticeable like that, it really takes you out of the experience. Requiem might just be one of the most beautiful games I have ever seen. Not only is the game still full of incredible scenic shots that will make photo mode a large portion of your playtime, they expanded the setting to be a lot more varied than Innocence. You will see beautiful flower fields, wide mountain ranges, and sprawling cities full of people, in addition to disturbing images of plague-ridden slums and caves. The game goes above and beyond and always wowing you, and the last few chapters especially will show you things you not only didn't expect, but will never forget. The only thing that still drags the visual experience down are the characters' faces. They did improve them, no doubt, but they still give you a bit of a weird feeling, being neither realistic nor non-realistic. It also doesn't help that the lip syncing is often a little off to the voice acting. The soundtrack uses a lot of the same leitmotifs as Innocence, but transforms them by adding a choir to a lot of the tracks, really playing on the name and giving the score a church-like requiem feeling that fits in perfectly with the story. Olivier de Rivière has once again managed to create a soundtrack that is soothing one minute but highly disturbing and flat out scary the next. There aren't a lot of scores like this out there, and it's worth a listen even if you aren't planning to play the game. Amicia still uses her trusty sling as her weapon of choice, although tool might be more accurate this time around because you don't get nearly as many opportunities to kill with it as you did in Innocence. The reason for that is that most enemies wear helmets and you have lost the ability to relieve them of their metal headdresses. No more melting armor with Devorantis. So how do you deal with the enemies if your sling is useless against them? Well, that's where the game's newest alchemic projectile comes in, tar. You throw tar at something, or someone, and follow that up with an ignifer projectile, that's the fire one, and get ready for the light show. Going from flinging rocks to burning people alive is nothing in the life of Amicia de Rune. But what if you like to go the old-fashioned way of just shooting something at your enemies and being done with it? You might have seen it in promotional material already, but Amicia is rocking a crossbow in this game and it packs quite a punch, killing every enemy in the game with just one shot, as long as their body isn't armored. However, this is still a stealth game, so the materials and ammunition needed for these methods are very scarce, meaning you can't just plow through the game shooting and burning everyone. Well, you can with a specific late game skill, but most of the time, your goal is to get through an area undetected by sneaking and using alchemy to your advantage. If you ever do get spotted, you will have to either take out the enemies or find a way to lose them so you can go into hiding again, because direct confrontation with an enemy means death. However, you do have a last resort if you get caught: knives. These are very rare and can be used to counter an enemy who is about to kill you, eliminating them in the process. However, these are also used to open up the game's most lucrative, well-hidden treasure chests, so it's always a good idea to hold on to them to get more materials down the road. Speaking of materials, the crafting system has been simplified a bit. Instead of having multiple materials, you now only have tools and parts. These are used to upgrade your inventory and weapons, just like in the first game. What's new is a skill system that will give you new abilities by leveling up one of 3 styles of play: sneaking, killing, and alchemy. How do you level them up? By using them. If you sneak by a section without being spotted, your sneaking skill will go up. Do that enough, and you'll get abilities that enhance that style of play. The idea here is really cool, but since the game often forces you into one style by, for example, throwing you into unavoidable combat encounters where you can't avoid killing, all of your skills will level up some, and I found it hard to max out one of the skill sets in a single playthrough. If you aren't avoiding and fighting soldiers, you're usually either solving puzzles or trying to not get eaten by rats. These sections work just like in the first game, with you having to stay in the fire so the rats can't get to you, and using various means to go from fire to fire. There's just a lot less of them. Where Innocence had lots of slow-paced rat sections with puzzles and a few stealth and combat parts sprinkled in, Requiem turns this around for a more enemy-focused gameplay. When I said earlier that our new companions add new things to the gameplay, I meant that each of them had a specific skill that will help you staying alive and add a bit of variety to the gameplay. Lucas, for example, can throw one of his alchemical concoctions onto an enemy, blinding them for a few seconds. Hugo, who you get to control passively by giving him commands, gets a few cool abilities down the road that I won't go into detail with for spoiler reasons, but they are certainly fun to play with and very useful. The game also features some non-linear levels that you can explore to find crafting and upgrade materials, ammunition, and collectibles. These are very open areas like towns and plains that you usually cross while getting to your next objective and are entirely optional. The collectibles in Requiem are much like before. There are 3 kinds: flowers, feathers, and souvenirs, none of them having any impact on gameplay and are purely there for additional bits of story, lore, and achievements. Focusing more on the combat has made one thing about this game very clear: the combat needs some work. Making your main weapon more or less pointless, especially in the latter half of the game, is stupid, especially when the only easy to use alternatives are bound by scarce resources. This especially shows in sections with mandatory fights against multiple enemies out in the open. Not only is it not fun, it's also very frustrating because you will probably die quite a few times before figuring out a strategy to kill your enemies without spending all your resources. Knives are also way too rare to have them act as a save your ass move and keys for treasures. I didn't use a lot of them in combat and still found myself not being able to open a chest because I didn't have a knife on hand multiple times. A Plague Tale Requiem does have its problems. The shift to more combat-heavy gameplay may have made sense from a story perspective, but only highlights the weak points of the series with borderline useless weapons and frustrating combat sections. However, Asobo Studios also managed to play on their strengths and delivered a game that will take you on an emotional journey you will never forget, thanks to its strong characters, striking visuals both beautiful and disturbing, as well as a soundtrack that will leave you speechless. Have you played A Plague Tale Requiem already? What are your thoughts on the game? Or maybe you haven't and this review made you want to check it out. Let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this review, it helped you out somehow, or you just want to help me play the YouTube algorithm game to spread this video to more people, go ahead and hit that like button, it really helps out. Thank you. I'm also live on YouTube every Monday and Friday, so feel free to come by and say hi. Thank you very much for watching, and remember to always keep that backlog rolling.